There we go. We should be recording now.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Jo. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Council of Governors meeting this sunny April morning. And we are quorate this morning, so I'm very pleased to welcome a large group of governors, and indeed all the colleagues from the board who are participating in this session today. Just to remind you that this session is being recorded and will be available for viewing on our website. So it's really important just to note that, and particularly just bear in mind that we are currently in what's called a pre-election period, which is preceding the local elections that are due to take place in May. There is some specific guidance during the pre-election period, which is designed to avoid public bodies such as ourselves distracting from or having an influence on any election campaign. So just to be aware really that we need to be slightly more cognizant of our neutrality and independence in any election process, and therefore just be aware of any topics that we can't cover as a result. I think we planned our agenda to be to avoid any such controversies, so not anticipating any challenges around that, but obviously we'll let you know if there's anything more difficult that we need to cover that should arise during the meeting. We have had a few apologies. One, the apologies we've received are from Adam Webb, Robin Cupforth and Mark Major. But otherwise, as I say, we are quorate and so delighted to welcome so many governors to our meeting. We do have executive apologies from David Williams as well. And I note that we have a couple of executives who will be joining us, but going to be slightly later in doing so. So again, warm welcome everybody, and going on to the sort of first bit of our agenda. So apart from the welcome, which obviously I've done, declarations of interest, just a reminder that any changes or additional declarations need to be submitted through the Foundation Trust inbox. If there's anything that you particularly are worried might be a conflict on the agenda today, you have an opportunity to highlight that now. Otherwise, we'll just note paper A, which is the declarations of interest. Paper B then is the minutes of the previous meeting. So just wanted to check that everyone is content to sign that off. So unless council members who are the governors let me know if there are any points of inaccuracy, I'll take it that those are you're satisfied that they're a reflection of the meeting and can be approved. Great, thank you. So there are no items on the action log outstanding. So unless there are any other matters arising, I suggest we move on to the substantive business on our agenda today. And in practice, in common with the approach we took at the last council, which I think worked really well, we've asked one of our public governors to share a bit of their story of why they're a governor and a bit about their experiences. And I'm really pleased to welcome Simon Davey to do that. Simon, I think you've been a governor for a little bit of time now, so it'd be really interesting to get your perspective. So over to you. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Good morning all. Expecting Jo to share some slides here.
Yeah, I'm having technical difficulties now. It's my turn, I think. Now we've solved everyone else's. So I don't know if any of my colleagues in the corporate governance team is able to open the slides, but yeah, I'm having difficulties on my end, unfortunately.
Do you want me to do it?
If you're able to, that's fine also, yes.
Yeah, okay.
The only thing is you won't probably be able to see the screen. I think you can't see anybody if you share the slides from your own screen, but what I can do is if anyone puts their hand up, I'll come in if that's all right, if you're happy to share.
No, that's perfectly fine. I'll just I closed it down earlier because I don't like too many screens to be open. Council of Governors, mouse, share. Is that working?
Lovely. Perfect. We can see that really clearly. Thank you, Simon.
Perfect. No problem at all. Okay, so good morning all. I'm Simon Davey. I am the Public Governor for Kettering and Corby. I'm approaching my second anniversary. So Christy, when you mentioned earlier on, it's been a while. It's about 2 years. So my second birthday is coming up rather soon. So there you go. So I was asked about what motivated me to become a governor. So first of all, there's a bit of context around myself, who I am, and why not start at the beginning. So I was born and bred in Corby. I was one of the few couple of 100,000 people that were born in the Corby Community Hospital way back last century. And my journey to Corby was, I'm a son of an immigrant. My mother's Irish. She moved over with my grandfather many, many years ago to work in a small little cottage industry that, we now know called as British Steel. My father's from London, and he moved to Corby to get some work in British Steel because we just couldn't afford to live in London at that time. God knows if I lived in London now, whether I'd be able to afford anything or do anything. All my life has not been spent in Corby. I have moved around. I have lived in other towns within the county and also outside of the county. And I'm a nomad. I like traveling. I've been to 62 countries in my life. I do have a list of about 120 countries that I want to visit, and I'm doing a good job at reaching them all. And from that travel, what travel gives me is it gives me an appreciation of other people around the world and how they do things, which leads me nicely into my local business. I'm a local business owner. I business improvement, so I work with to improve their business performance, and that is by engaging, empowering the staff to drive business change from the bottom up, and that's trying to do things more simply, more leaner, more cost effective, but also taking data and using that as a data driven decision. And I'll probably come back to that a couple of times in future slides in how that helps me in being a governor. I'm also a type 1 diabetic. I recently diagnosed, so in the last 3 years, came completely nicely out of the blue. But what it gave me, it gave me an insight into how the NHS works, how the NHFT support services are there for us. Had a couple of fantastic seminars, workshops around diabetes and how to manage it. And it was interesting because I was brand new to diabetes and I'm a business analyst. You throw those two things together, and a few people have said to me, "You're the perfect person to get type 1 diabetes." I thought, is that is that a kick, or is that well done for getting it, which I thought was quite funny, because I wear a continuous glucose monitor. I have all the data. I can make informed decisions from that data, and I've managed my diabetes really, really well. Whenever I go and see a consultant, or whenever I see any of the diabetic team, they're just like, "You're doing fantastically well. You're doing better than most people." And it's just that my job and my disease I managed together as one. So that's that's the basis of me. That's my story. Well, my motivation to become a governor, as I say, been in the role for a couple of years now, and the first thing is passion for community well-being. I'm dedicated to enhancing the health, happiness, and overall quality of life within the community. And I think a positive, happy community makes things work a hell of a lot better. If people are unwell, people are sad, then it's hard to get motivation. It's hard to get things moving. But if we've got a nice, well-rounded, happy community, then change becomes organic. Change happens naturally. As you see outside, beautiful sunshine, you will see more people smiling than it was a grey, miserable day. So by doing that and working with the community, I believe that I can become a very good governor, and I can enable the community to be a better, happier place to live. Advocacy for quality care. Now, my background is I've done lots of quality roles, working for big companies, and it's all about quality. It's all about doing the things right first time, and I'm aimed at ensuring patients receive safe, effective, and high standard healthcare services. So if somebody needs to interact with the NHFT, they get the right care at the right time with the right person to get the right support to get their treatment and to become the best version of what they are. And we do that by building a good quality care structure for everyone to be involved with who needs it, to get the right care and to get themselves into a great position, which impacts on the previous point of the community well-being. You know, if people are happy with their treatment, then they're going to be happy overall, which then builds the greater community. And this one I think is really good, and it comes into, you know, my job is giving those without a voice. Now, that's aimed at ensuring offering resources, guidance, and opportunities for individuals to be heard and acknowledged. So I look at my role as a governor as a conduit, and this is exactly a lift and shift from my personal life and my work life. Is I am the bridge between the board and the people who are doing the job. And that works within the NHFT, and it works also with other businesses out there. And some people find it really hard to articulate what it is that they want and how they want that to be perceived and across. So I'm a good sounding board. I take a lot of shouting and screaming in my day-to-day life from other people, and I know that's based on emotion. We can't change things based on emotion. It's trying to understand that nugget of advice or what their pain points are, and then focusing on that. So letting people vent is brilliant, as long as you don't take it personally. And I don't take it personally because I know from being a point of frustration myself that it's hard to get across what you want to get across. So find somebody who can do it for you in a more eloquent and more structured, and I call it business case way. I've talked about my business, so I've got experience in business performance. So what I like about the NHFT is we know the numbers, we know what's happening, we know how we're performing. There's data everywhere. Data-driven decisions happen, and great. And what that does is then gives me the opportunity to say, you know, if somebody says to me, this is not happening because of X, Y, Z, and it's a public person, I can then say, well, actually, these are the results, this is what it is, and this is what we're focusing on. So it's taking that, what I do every day, my work hat, and using that skill and experience within the public forum as well. And my personal connection to healthcare, I've talked about it, my type 1 diabetes, I have got to see under the bonnet and see how, you know, like the likes of the NHFT and support services work. And that makes my story tell to the public a hell of a lot easier as well. So what do I bring to the council? So I've just touched on it there, understanding how some of the services of the NHFT work. I understand that we're not brilliant. However, we can work at it, we can make it better. And that's come through the understanding of how businesses work. So strategy, what is the strategy? What is the NHFT trying to do? And it's communicating that strategy then to the public, as I say, as a conduit earlier on. And then we've got the KPIs and scorecards. So what is the data telling us? It's giving us data-driven decisions. Where are we doing well? Where do we need to improve? And with data, you've got a better story tell to people and say, you're right. You are frustrated because, you know, a referral is taking 12 to 18 months, but this is what we're working on. This is how we're doing it. It's that conversation, having open and honest communication with people so they can actually make their own informed decision. Sometimes, you know, we have to give people bad news. I've had to tell people that, you know, I'm making their job redundant in previous roles. It's a hard conversation, but you then have to justify why you're doing that. And this is how we're doing it. I work in a world of continuous improvement. Everyone thinks I'm there to cut heads. And I have had those difficult conversations that I've just mentioned, but we're there to create capacity. We're there to improve services. And by getting people to focus on continuous improvement and doing a better job, and you know, and that's not within a business, it's also individually as well. It's like get up, move, you know, do things that help your health, help you improve yourself as an individual. You know, people look at and say, never done continuous improvement. And I'll ask questions like, have you done a couch to 5K? Yes, I have. I'm doing really well on it. That is continuous improvement. You're doing better, you're improving your health, you're making yourself a better person. And within that continuous improvement, you know, identify the root cause to the problem and how we can, you know, continually strive for better outcomes. So that is something that I'm always challenging. I'm always looking at, you know, in my life. I do silly things in my life and to change things and to make them better. You know, my diabetes, my management, my diabetes, I'm looking to improve that every single time, and how I can get my numbers even better than what they currently are. And this one is really key, is voice of the customer. And yes, it's a very business speak, but we have internal and external customers. So my internal customers are the board and other governors. My external customers are the public. And to understand what that voice is, is to get to understand the challenge of both those internal and external customers. Well, I said earlier on about people venting. It's okay, that is their voice, but what is it that can help us as the NHFT to improve and to be better? This is not my only voluntary role. My other voluntary role is a mentor on the government Help to Grow scheme. So the Help to Grow scheme is a government-based system where small business owners get to do a 10-week course. They call it a mini MBA, to learn about all across businesses. So lots of people want to go out and be a business owner because they don't want to work for the man. They want to earn their own money. They want to be in control of their own destiny. However, going from a great idea to then wearing several hats. So you think, I've worked in a production environment, I believe I can make the next best product, so I'm going to go and do it. Well, I don't know anything about health, HR, I don't know anything about accounts, I don't know anything about logistics. So this mentor scheme helps big businesses understand that at a high level. And part of that, they get 10 hours free with a mentor who's been trained by the Help to Grow scheme to share and to help these businesses grow as well. So I do that. I'm currently up to 8 mentees over the last 2 years, and it's really good because it's really good for me because I understand the businesses, understand their challenges, and it's again listening to them and help them actually find their own answers. So don't go in and say you want to do this, 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 and this. Talk to them, get them to understand, and get them to think, because the answers are in everybody's head. It's just how do we elicit those ideas out and find our own solutions. So I really enjoy that. It's free. I don't get paid for it, but I enjoy doing it. And it's about giving something back. So all the way through the governors is I want to give something back to my community. My community have been very good to me. So why not be good and share knowledge, share collaboration, so we can all move and change the world as a group, not as individuals. A couple of associations. So I'm a founder member of the North Hampshire Business Network. That's a number of small businesses that meet every month and network and share best practice, and then also try and get work from each other, referrals, etc., etc. And then I'm a member of the Association of Business Mentoring as well, which is a national business mentoring. Again, peer-to-peer, share best practice, collaborate, learn new skills, share experiences, and then use those two memberships to help the public. So what am I passionate about? I'm passionate about, a commitment to ensuring that patients, they're receiving the highest standard of care, because in my mind, I work on KPIs, right first time. So if we're not giving our patients the right service and the best service, they're just going to keep coming back. They're just going to elongate the waiting list. They're just going to put more and more pressure onto the system. It's not going to work. It's not going to fix. So let's look at right first time. How can we improve? And we do this by talking to people, finding out their stories, finding out, where the challenges are in the business, opening those cans of worms. People don't like opening cans of worms. I do, because you then find out how many worms are in there, how big they are. And until you know that, you don't know what you're dealing with. I have a strong desire to contribute to the improvement of mental health and community healthcare services in Northamptonshire. I know a couple of people who have gone through the mental health system, and they're finding it frustrating because of the timelines it's taken to do that. And then I can give them opportunities through this role as a governor, to try things and to signpost them to the right places to help them get the care, the attention, and the service that they need. And I'm, my personal experiences within the NHS, by working with the NHS and working the NHFT, I've seen where we can be better, and I've got a desire to contribute that, to help with the governance and development, to take the skills that I've learned outside to bring and share with the NHFT to improve and to make the NHFT as best as it can be, today. And then looking expertise and performance, that's what I bring. It's my business, it's my day-to-day, it pays my bills. We should be looking to improve in everything that we do. And I believe if we do that as a whole, then that will help us as a trust to operate more efficiently. And then people will then, less people have to come through the system, but the people who are dealing with the system have a better customer experience all the way through. Now, I've made some pledges, and I think this is a cornerstone of what I do as a governor. It's not just help, it's not just turn up, it's not just be a face to ensure that things are done correctly and things are signed off. So what I did, I made a pledge to observe a non-exec director service video, which I had the pleasure of in the 12th of November. We went and met the Corby community nurse team in the diagnostic centre. We met Jessica Lyons Lawson, who was community matron, and that was myself, Dave Mayer, and Julia Curtis. And it was really good to get in and talk to people who are working within the system, our internal customers, to find out, the challenges of what they've got, their day-to-day role, and just understand what great work people are doing out there and how we can make that better for them. Attend a Northants NED Governor Consistency meeting. I've been to a lot of them now, face-to-face, online. They've been really good. We get to share experiences, we get to share what we're doing, and then to shape that messaging that comes from the board to our governors, that we can then go out and we can positively sell the NHFT to the public, which keeps the public happy, keeps them informed. As I said earlier on about communication, data-driven decisions, they get to know that, they get to understand that they're not in the dark, the light is shined on the great work the NHFT is doing to give them the best informed choices of what they need to do next. And then the last one, take part in a membership engagement and representation priority meeting. So I've been part of the non-REM meetings as well. A couple of them been to. Unfortunately, with my work, it's hard to get to as many meetings as I'd like to. I'd like to do all of them, but unfortunately, my paying job gets in the way. If there's a multi-millionaire, this would probably be a volunteer. I'd be a volunteer full-time, 100%. So that's that. And going on to the last slide. So this is something that I believe in. This is my favorite quote in all the world. I actually took that picture. That's one of the 62 countries I've been to. That was Hong Kong 5 years ago, pre-pandemic. And simplicity is the key to brilliance. And that's it. Let's not over egg the pudding. Let's not have too much governance. Let's not have everything. Let's just keep things nice and simple so people can understand it, people can make informed choices, and people can make the right choices to be a better person and for us to be a better NHFT for everyone. So that's me. That's my little presentation. So any questions, I'm quite happy to answer. And please don't get me to list all the 62 countries I've been to.
Sounds like we'd be here for a very long time. Thank you very much, Simon. I must apologise. Okay. I lost my connection briefly during, and I didn't quite know whether it was me or everybody, but I did.
You didn't miss much, don't worry.
But I do apologise that I disappeared, but I think I got most of it. And thank you very much. You can see that there was some virtual applause there for your presentation, because I think that was really, really interesting and really gave a sense of your passion and enthusiasm for continuous improvement, which I think and simplicity. I think there's a good argument for simplicity, as you rightly highlighted. I didn't know that quote from Bruce Lee, but it's always good to pick out these things from your travels and different experiences that people have had. And thank you also, Simon, for sharing your lived experience as someone with a long-term condition, because I think, that can often be a driver for all of us to be involved and support the development and improvement of services, and it's really helpful, I think, when people are open and share those experiences. So thank you. If you're content, Simon, to take some questions, I'll bring people in if that's okay. So first of all, welcome, Christopher. I think this might be your first meeting, actually. Am I right in saying that, or were you at the last meeting and I just didn't spot you? But anyway, welcome, and over to you if you'd like to ask Simon a question.
Yes, thanks very much, Chair. It is my first meeting, so I've only just joined, taking over from Sue Watts, and I just wanted to raise my hand and say hello. I'm Chris Duff, Chief Executive of Age UK Northamptonshire. But I did want to compliment you, Simon. That was a super presentation, and it's very timely for me because having joined, I've now got a great background, if you like, as to sorts of things I could be thinking about. So thank you very much, Simon.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. And so colleagues will recall we said goodbye to Sue at the end of the last meeting, I think, indeed. So a warm welcome to you, Chris, and really good to have you on board. You've got some big shoes to fill. I don't mean that in a just because Sue was with us a long time, but we've always appreciated the support and partnership with Age UK Northamptonshire. So really glad that you were able to follow in her footsteps, and anything we can do obviously to help you with your onboarding and settling in. I know you've had an induction, so but really pleased that you've heard really from another governor about how they see their role. And I think this is one of the important opportunities that these stories from governors helps us to do, because everyone brings a different perspective, but ultimately I guess the common element is how do we make sure that, probably the commonest driver is how do we make sure that our services are the best that they can possibly be, which is what Simon was talking about at the beginning, and acting as that conduit into the community, which we all recognise is not an easy role for governors to play, but it is an important role. And as I think I've sometimes said to colleagues in as part of a sort of governor induction is, the Council of Governors is the closest thing we've got in the NHS to democratic accountability. So in that sense, it is a very helpful and important role for us. So thank you, Julia.
Thanks, Christiane. Thanks, Simon. Absolutely brilliant presentation. Thank you very much. Hello, Christopher. I'm Julia, one of the non-exec directors. Simon, thank you for being so honest, open, and sharing so much. And it just reminds me how each of our governors have very, very different skill sets and bring so much richness to our council. So thank you for sharing all of that. It's exciting. I've watched you over the last couple of years ask really interesting questions. It's really made me think. I chair the Quality and Safety Committee, and of course, I'm passionate about quality and safety too. And it just makes me think slightly differently, and I love that. But I just wanted to say thanks for your attendance at that service visit that we went to with community nursing, and just to say to other governors, if you've made a pledge to attend a service visit and haven't had the opportunity, do take that up, because I think we both gained an awful lot from that, along with Dave Mayer, and it gave us a really rounded sense of what's going really well. They're doing some brilliant work, but also their challenges. And I think when it's local as well to where you are, a governor, part of your constituency, really helps us understand their day-to-day pressures and what people are under, and is their passion and enthusiasm for high quality care despite some quite challenging situations. So just encourage everybody to take up their opportunities if they've pledged to do so. But thanks, Simon, really open, honest, and a fantastic presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you for the invite to go meet the community team. It's really good, and I would say more people to go and do it. They're really good. They're really interesting.
Thanks, Simon. And I think there are a couple more examples in Richard's report to follow, aren't there? And definitely, if you want to get a sense of how services, all the myriad services, and there are many, how they're dealing, as Julia rightly said, with the challenges that inevitably people are facing, but with that focus on continuous improvement, which is the bit that I think really resonated with me, Simon, because that's the biggest thing, isn't it? That the most important thing is recognizing the challenges we do have, and yes, we do have those, but always looking for ways in which we can address improvement. And that is certainly something that I think that sense of learning and improvement is definitely one of the features of a CQC inspection. Nobody's necessarily expecting perfection, but it's that sense of how we're responding to what the challenges we've got and how we're trying to drive those forward. So really, really important. Michael, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Simon. One of the things that really has struck me, I liked your comment about emotion, not driving change and quality and so forth, and the use of data. So that's a light bulb moment for me. And I just wondered, given your mentoring experience as well, have you been able to use that concept with any conversations you've had with people from the community? So, for example, talking about services with NHFT, and it sounds like you would be a great person to work with staff in the service as well.
Thank you. Give me another job. Lovely. The more hats, the merrier, eh? Yeah, no, I have. I know people who work within the NHS, not necessarily NHFT. I know lots of people, in the community, and I've spoken to in the community. And as I say, it's that emotion. People, I would say, people get excited, and that's where their passion comes out. And they shout, they scream, and it's not trying to articulate what they're trying to say. It's just they want somebody to to listen to them, and I can do that. I can let somebody shout and scream at me for 5 minutes and not bite or get involved with it, because I know I've been in that position myself. So you've just got to flip it and think where you are. But then it's that asking those questions to get to the root cause of the problem. So root cause analysis is something I do a lot in continuous improvement. What is the actual root cause? What is the you've been to the doctor and it was cancelled. It was okay, but what is the root cause of this challenge? And then by asking those key questions, you can get to the right answer. And then I can go, right, I can go and find that. Somebody's just going to shout and scream at you. I've had emails from a couple of people, and they're not very sort of like positive. And I just looked at it and just went, you're just venting. There's no substance to what you're saying. You're just venting. And I just said, okay, thank you for that. What can I do to help you? How can I support you? Questions like that, open-ended questions, and then nothing. Absolutely nothing. They've vented to a public governor. That's it. The emotion's gone out of it. So it's having those skills to identify what the root cause is. What is it they actually want? And it might just be the want to vent. That's fine. If it makes them, walk away happier because they've vented and somebody's listened to them, brilliant. But if they've vented and they've actually got somebody going out and finding some information, and that person comes back and signposts them to where they need to go, great. That's what you need to do. So that's it is emotion. Take the emotion out of things, and get to the real key nuggets of the information, and then with that data, move on and make that decision.
Brilliant. Thanks, Simon. Okay. That's a real skill.
Free mentoring session for you all.
Thank you, Simon. Certainly keeping calm under pressure and under heavy challenge is a very important skill. And I think, being evidence-based in decision making, which I think is what you were highlighting around data, is really important, because we all need to understand what the data is telling us. I do think sometimes supplementing that, as you have done, Simon, with personal stories, can be really helpful, because it brings it to life for people, and so that can be a really great way of sort of really people understanding what it's like to be a data point, if you like, because sometimes I think that can be helpful too. But you've illustrated that really well in your own presentation. So thank you. Is there anything else? Or people content to leave it there? I think no more questions, Simon. So thank you very much. Really interesting to hear your perspective, and I think we very much support the interest in continuous improvement and the commitment to that, and lots of positive feedback also in the chat there, Simon, which I'm sure you've looked at. So thanks again, and we'll be looking to continue those series of those presentations, because I always feel it's really important to get your voice into these meetings and give you the chance to share what your views and perspectives are. So thank you. Right, well, we move on then to the Council of Governors report, which comes from Richard, as usual. So Richard is our Director of Corporate Governance. It's paper C, but I think Richard will take us through it. So over to you, Richard.
Thanks very much, Krishni. Good morning, everybody. What an inspiring story from Simon, and we've got some more examples in the slides here about some of the work that governors are doing. Really a bit of an advert. This item on the agenda is designed to bring to life some of the work that governors are doing across the organisation. So if you've got a story or something that you've been involved in that you want to highlight in a future report, then do drop us a line, and we'd be really pleased to include your contribution in a report to the next meeting. But I'll move through the presentation, and I may invite colleagues that are featured in the presentation just to say a few words about their contributions as we go through. So the first thing to report, I think you'll remember from the last meeting that we were underway with the annual governor elections programme. We've got here up on the screen the positions that were available for nomination in this period, and we now have concluded the elections campaign. So you'll see from the slide, we're pleased to welcome Summer, who joins us as our new public governor for Daventry and South Northants constituency. We've got an induction session planned, I think, next week, so hopefully Summer will be joining us for the next meeting of the council in a couple of months' time. Unfortunately, we didn't receive any nominations to join Simon in the Kettering and Corby constituency. I'm sure that's nothing to do with Simon, of course, but more to do with a level of interest perhaps in that community. So we are not going to be advertising immediately for a new governor to join us in that area, largely because we are well represented for the constituency, and it would incur additional costs. So we will keep the situation under review, but our plan is to go back out for elections for that constituency at the next annual elections process later in this financial year. Although at the time of writing, voting was still underway for the Wellingborough and East Northants constituency, we have got the results through this morning. So we shall be pleased to welcome Mabel Blades, who has been elected as the representative for that constituency. So congratulations to Mabel. Like Summer, we will look for an opportunity to invite Mabel in for an induction process, and then hopefully could welcome her to the next meeting of the council in a couple of months' time. So thank you very much to governors that have helped us to promote the opportunities to stand as a governor. We know that word of mouth is often as good as some of the advertising that we do centrally within the organisation. So thank you very much indeed. And we will obviously then be moving forward with the inductions for our new governors over the next couple of weeks. So moving through them, as I alluded to, we've got a couple of examples here of some of the work that our governors have been undertaking, and thank you very much to Michael for sharing his experience. We can see on the screen just some of the quotes that we got by way of feedback from Michael, who, a bit like Simon, really had the opportunity to go out on a service visit, in this case joining our Deputy Chief Exec, Dave Mayer, one of our NEDs, Robin, and also Judith, to the eating disorders and sexual health teams. Rather than me reading out your quotes, Michael, I don't know whether there's anything that you wanted to say based on your experience.
Thank you, Richard. As you know, I've always got something to say. What I think for the public governor for the rest of England, it is a challenge, and I really appreciated the opportunity to spend the day in Northamptonshire and working with colleagues in the services. I think what I would just like to reinforce is that the value of face-to-face meetings, because you can really pick up an awful lot in terms of the nuances with the non-execs, excuse me, and as well as staff members as well. And it is about building those relationships, and I think that the value and being able to have the time to spend time in the services and really building those relationships is really important. And I think the thing that really impressed me is the ability, apologies, is that really sort of, as I've said, that triangulation in terms of what we hear and discuss on these meetings, but actually being able to go and sort of test it. And I felt very welcome. I felt that the conversations were very mature, and I don't mean to say that in a condescending way, because we've all been to organisations where you can definitely sense people are sometimes on their best behaviour because they feel they have senior people or external people coming to their meetings. I felt throughout the culture was very mature, very engaging. I didn't sort of observe any sort of tensions or anything. And I have to say that's one of the things that has really impressed me with our conversations, and being able to sort of to go out and test that as well. And I think that the teams were very open around some of the challenges that they had, and obviously within sexual health services, it was a really good conversation about the retendering process and how they're going to rise to some of the challenges as well. So I've just provided a summary, but again, I would just encourage fellow governors to participate. Apologies.
Thank you very much, Michael. Yes, indeed. And so there are a series of opportunities that we are starting to advertise for governors, taking account of the feedback to allow people a little bit more time to plan these into the diary. So do look out for those opportunities. We turn then to another case study, and I don't want to put Pete on the spot, but Pete, if you did want to talk to your experience here, either on a service visit, in this case to the LD service, or indeed with your experience going out to the it looks like it's may have been the Guildhall actually, but the International Women's Day event. I don't know, Pete, whether you wanted to say anything here.
No, thanks, Richard. I'd just like to endorse what was said earlier on. I just think it's very important that governors are seen and are out and about and reinforcing the work that the execs and the non-execs do in the public domain, because it's very important that people can see that NHFT is doing what it's doing. And the best way of doing that is for governors to, I think, to support the rest of the team that are working hard in the field doing what they do. So the International Ladies' Day, I was wearing two hats, so I was there anyway. So I thought, as soon as I saw the NHFT desk, I shot over there and got a photograph. And then when I saw the other desk, I changed my hat and had another photograph with that. But the service visit, again, I would encourage any one of the governors to go on a service visit, because it's very rewarding to see the staff actually asking you questions and understanding where you're from and who you are, and they feel engaged, and they also feel that they're being cared for. And on my visit, I was really impressed with the management team there, and the director that was with me as well was asking the right questions with the right people. So I felt we were covering all aspects.
Super, thanks, Pete. So yes, hopefully a ringing endorsement of the opportunity to all governors to get out on a service visit. It was certainly something that the Membership Engagement and Representation Committee also put its weight behind, as well as a recommendation. So yeah, we'll be in touch with some opportunities for you in due course. So it's been alluded to really in terms of the opportunity to undertake some face-to-face activities, getting out to see services. These were some points that were put forward previously by, I think it was our last Council of Governors last year had said actually some improvements we could make. So we've taken the opportunity, led by Tracy at the recent meetings, of governors and non-execs, to just reflect on some of our meetings, what's working well that we should continue doing. It's now this year, isn't it, in 25-26, and where potentially we might need to make some changes or improvements. So what we've set out on this slide really is hopefully the outcomes of the discussions. Unfortunately, I was on leave on that day, but the governors and NEDs had on those meetings. So you'll see there in the first sort of clutch of meetings, the joint meeting that the governors have with the board of directors, and also the joint meeting that we have as a trust, a Council of Governors with the Kettering General Hospital Council of Governors. Both of those were found to be things that we should continue doing as is. So no changes to those planned for the corporate calendar, as it were, for 25-26. We also then looked at the North and West constituency meetings, which cropped up in the earlier conversation in this group. And whilst there certainly is value in holding these meetings, I think it was felt actually it may be useful to join these two elements together, because we have at times struggled with attendance at some of those meetings, and actually because there's often a common interest in a topic right across the county, I think the feeling was actually joining them up and having a bigger group of people coming together might be more beneficial than having smaller separate conversations. Having said that, where we are wanting to discuss a particularly local issue, we want to reserve the opportunity to have a local conversation, or indeed to have a face-to-face meeting at a local venue as well. So what we're proposing is that we proceed with a joined up series of meetings by default in 25-26, and then as we need to, we could offer out local opportunities to meet if that is required. So when we get to the end, we'll just really seek your support for that proposal that came out of those two discussions over the last couple of weeks. So I might ask Tracy to speak to this, because she's pulled together this information, which Simon talked about in his update, our pledge programme. Tracy's been leading this work, albeit has had a time away from the trust most recently. But Tracy, do you want to give us some of the headlines on our pledge programme, please?
Yeah, so thanks, Richard. Apologies, obviously I was off for a couple of months, so I couldn't obviously chase you on these pledges quite recently. I think some of you certainly knew I was back because I was emailing you all about your pledges, I think within my first few days a week of being back. So we are making relatively good progress, particularly on the holding to account side. I think I've just summarised, we're hovering under just 70% of pledges that I can evidence have taken place on the holding account side of the pledges that governors have made. It's probably a bit less on the membership side, but it's kind of a plea to all governors that where I've asked you to review your pledges, please do let me know what you've done and to provide evidence so we can update the log by the end of this month. Because what we're hoping to do is relaunch the pledge programme again, as we did this year, for next year. Through some conversations I had with some of you would find it useful to recommit to a pledge and try and take that forward that you've not been able to quite complete this year and take forward to next year. So I would just have a think about that and how you might want to take it forward. And I think this has probably come up every year, but just to ask governors to just consider their time commitments and what they think is realistic to achieve with the pledges. But we will be relaunching again. So it's just a bit of a plea really to make sure you have told me any meetings you've been to or events or any work you've done so we can log it for this year. And then we'll be doing the same again next year. But we've obviously got the Membership Engagement and Representation Committee meeting coming up next month. So I think we might use that opportunity to discuss how we do some of these pledges linked to the membership priorities as well. So thank you everybody who has got back to me, and keep going basically and start again for next year.
Super, thanks very much, Tracy. And also, yes, what we will do is take some examples of pledges that have been completed and feature them in our annual report and accounts, which of course we're busily starting to prepare at the moment. That might also give the opportunity for governors that wish to appear on our annual governor video, which we use at our annual public and members meeting to speak to their pledges. So again, if you are particularly keen to do that, then do let us know so we can factor that in as we move towards the annual report and accounts deadline. So in the interest of time, I'll just then flash this final slide up on the screen, which is just an advert or a reminder really of some upcoming meetings that we've got in the diary. We'll obviously be sending out agendas and papers for these meetings in due course. But I think I'll perhaps finish there, Christian, just in addition to taking any questions or comments from council members, also seek support for the minor changes that we're proposing to make to the way in which the constituency meetings are running for the remainder of the year. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Richard. So are there any questions or comments regarding anything in that? I think we've sort of explored some of the experiences that were very much covered as part of the sort of examples from Pete and Michael, which were really helpful. So in the absence of any comments, I think, can I take it that governors are happy to support the proposal that we combine the North and West constituency meetings into a common one, which seems more pragmatic really, and as Richard said, with some flexibility to to run them differently in the future if we need to. So that seems like a sensible solution. So if everyone's content, I shall assume that we are happy to take that forward. Lots of other useful updates in there. I think my take, Richard, from some of the sort of points mentioned and Tracy's points as well, is it's probably sensible for governors to think about quality rather than quantity when it comes to pledges. The minimum, I think Tracy mentioned, was a 2. So if you've got, particularly recognising that many of you have other roles and other commitments as well, think about where you want to focus your attention. But we really enjoy seeing the pledges because I think it kind of gives a sense of purpose to what governors are keen to do, and it helps us focus on how we can support you. So very much welcome you to make the pledges, but think about what you can achieve and make sure they cover, I think, both sides of the key responsibilities that governors have. Tracy, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, just on the pledges, I thought what would be useful for governors and actually the board to know is we've actually been approached by several trusts about our pledges programme. So several other trusts have now taken up the idea of the governor pledges. So I've been in contact with many trusts. So I think that is quite a success for us that we've managed to influence some other NHS trusts as well with how they run sort of their governor programme as well.
Great, thank you, Tracy. Really good to know that. And the other thing, really, just to encourage, you've all seen, examples of how helpful the service visits, I think, have been. And I think Richard highlighted that the Membership Engagement and Representation Committee, which is a governor committee which focuses on that bit, is really keen to encourage governors to undertake a service visit. So perhaps if there's one pledge you can make practically in relation to that, it might be the one around a service visit, and then we'll try and support you as best we can to achieve that. But it does allow us then to align you with a NED and an exec going out on a service visit and hopefully support you to get the most out of that in the way that Michael and Pete and others have described. So yeah, encourage that. Richard.
Thank you. Just on Tracy's point, I had a meeting with somebody from North Yorkshire, and they are so fascinated with the idea of pledges because it helps give governors to focus on something to look forward to, and they've taken it up, and they're singing NHFT's praises in North Yorkshire because we've given them this idea of pledges, which helps governors to kind of be more focused in what they do. So
lovely, thanks, Richard. Thanks for sharing that. It's really good. It's always good to steal with pride, I think, is the philosophy, isn't it? Whether it's stealing with pride from others or stealing with pride from from other people stealing with pride from us. Definitely encourage that kind of sharing and learning. So thank you, Richard. I think we've got the endorsement to the change in the approach to the constituency meetings. Otherwise, I think everything you proposed was to pretty much continue as is. And we've got at the end of Richard's report, there is a list of the sort of up and coming meetings. And I think Monica was perhaps just asking that we can share details of any available service visits that are coming up. So we'll obviously circulate those as well. So thank you very much. We move on to our second session then, which is really about giving you some assurance and updates from myself and the Chief Executive and our non-executive directors about sort of areas that you might be interested in. Really just for myself, before I introduce Angela to everybody, I just wanted to mention that the Nominations Remuneration Committee of the Council supported the proposal that we kind of think early about the appointment of a senior independent director to replace Melanie when she eventually steps down, something we're going to have to face at some point after many years of being a NED at NHFT. And so we were delighted that the Council Nominations Remuneration Committee were keen to support UDIT as the designate SID, and the board endorsed that at its public meeting in March. So what that means, I think, is that although UDIT isn't formally appointed, it does allow her well, she's appointed, but at a date to be effective at a point to be agreed. But it does allow her to shadow Melanie, which we obviously welcome as an opportunity for her development, and particularly because Melanie has to undertake my appraisal. And members of the council who were part of our workshop earlier, where we were talking about the appraisal process. I know some colleagues weren't able to attend due to technical issues, but we will share the video around that. But what we covered was how governors can actually contribute to chair and non-executive appraisals, and why that's important in the context of the statutory duty that governors have. So I know not every governor will feel able to do that. Chris, as a new governor, you might feel it's way too early for me to contribute, but obviously the governors who've known us for a little bit longer will want to do that, and will want to give some feedback. And what we did was cover that process so that everybody hopefully will understand. Even if you weren't able to attend, we'll share the video and you'll be able to see how you can contribute your feedback to Chair and Ned appraisals. And as I mentioned, as part of that, Melanie undertakes my appraisal with members of the Council's Nominations Remuneration Committee, and for the purpose of UDIT's development, she will be shadowing that process. So you will see her shadowing Melanie on a number of different things, including probably the standards group. Actually, Richard, is one other area, isn't it, that we will want to introduce her to, so she can familiarise herself with some of the aspects that Melanie undertakes. So I just wanted to mention that, and I'm sure you will, as council, want to support UDIT in her future role undertaking that, which is important for the council as well as the board. So that was one thing I wanted to mention. And I also just take the opportunity to say I had the privilege of speaking to an organisation, a body called the Civil Society Policy Forum, which is a Commonwealth forum. I think at one point, I'm not sure they were all there when I was presenting, but I think at one point there were about 1,000 people on that call, which is quite a lot. It's a global community forum, and they were looking at health and social care staff, and the focus of it was very much around the importance of a resilient and engaged workforce in health and social care. So I wanted to mention it because it connects very much to the staff survey results item that Melanie and Tim will be sharing with us shortly. And the other reason for mentioning it was the invitation to speak at that forum actually came from a former governor of ours, David Jones, who very kindly invited NHFT to be represented at the forum to share our experience of the work we've done to try and focus on supporting our staff and engaging our staff, and supporting the well-being of our staff. So very much linked to the topic and the results that staff survey results item that will follow. But I just wanted to mention that it was great to be asked, and thank you to David Jones, who invited me to do that. I think it is available. I think the video of the presentation is available for you to share, for you to see if you want to. On that note, I am delighted to invite Angela, who's our Chief Executive, to lead her update. As ever, the Chief Executive's report that went to the last board, I think, has been circulated by link to you. But what we always are welcome from Angela is the chance to really share what's on sort of top of her agenda at the moment, and have an open conversation with you as governors. So over to you, Angela.
Thanks, Krishni, and good morning, everybody. Good to be with you. And if I can also echo my thanks to Simon for sharing your story. I found that fascinating and inspiring. So thank you, Simon, for that too. Yes, so a lot happening as ever, but I think important just to share some of that, well, some of the elements that I think are pretty critical in this next period. You'll see through the report, but also since then, a lot of change in the NHS. And that is a combination of various factors, leadership changes, you know, with the NHS chief executive and the team leading on that, the changes afoot for NHS England, and also the changes for integrated care boards, which are pretty significant. So quite a lot of change, a lot of people playing different roles now, and understanding the architecture in which we are going to be operating is very much our focus at the moment. So that's something very much in my mind and the team's mind in terms of how do we enter into this year with all those changes, understanding the context in which we're operating and how we play our role in that. And as you can see, I'm sure in the media, a lot of it is emerging on a daily basis. So that is very much live and at the forefront. In addition to that, I mentioned last time the work that was underway being led by Dave Mayer, Deputy Chief Exec, on the planning round. And that's really a significant piece of work for the whole trust, but obviously key members of the trust. And that has continued and has been at the forefront of our work as well. And we are now entering into 25-26 in what I would describe as a very challenging financial context. And that is something that, again, I know governors will note and understand, but that does bring with it a series of challenges over and above what we may have felt we had upon us in 24-25. I think that said, we've got some really strong foundations. And again, as Krishni has said, and I know will be mentioned in the staff survey, we do have strong staff engagement, and that is a real great asset to us in encountering any change that we need to navigate through in 25-26. And again, it's been mentioned this morning, the importance of data in that is ever critical. But it is going to be challenging, and I think that's important to say, despite the strong foundations. So we're entering into a period where we will hopefully land the year with a break-even position as agreed. That was our commitment, and we hope to be in that position. I'm sure Paul is still suggesting that to be the case, but that's an important piece to go into 25-26 with. But we do enter the year with a very challenging cost efficiency programme, value programme of 6.5%, which is a significant sum. And that is one of the highest that we've ever encountered and would need to deliver. So that's going to take collective effort. That's going to take people embracing change, understanding the leadership behaviour that goes with that, but also being open to innovation. You know, as Itai describes through the Dragon's Den's work, we need to be open to new models, new ways, new opportunities, and use data and evidence base at the heart of that. And of course, partnership working is going to be ever key. So that is the critical piece, and that is occupying, I think, most of what we're doing in this next period. I think what will be important when you hear more about the staff survey is to recognise the value we place on that. But I think importantly, we've got to make sure as a team and as a trust that we keep utilising that staff voice and that collective voice to help in this next period, because people will be challenged, and we need to make sure we stay very engaged with our staff to help us to deliver it, because ultimately they are the ones that deliver this change and what we have to deliver together. So that's something we need to navigate well. And then the final thing I just wanted to mention, and again it seems very apt because we're talking about the staff survey today, is to say that this is Chris Oakes, our Chief People Officer's last Council of Governors meeting. Chris is embarking on retirement, having been in our post for nearly 10 years, and has worked with me as Chief Executive for that period, which I've really valued, appreciated, and you know, that commitment to culture and working on the staff voice and engagement has been paramount in what Chris has been focused on. So I feel very much important for me to say thank you, Chris, for the work that you've done in that for the trust, but also in your support to the Council of Governors, which I know has also been a very large component of what you've been doing whilst you've been here. So I wouldn't want to miss that opportunity either, Krishni, and I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Angela. And I don't know, Chris, if you want to say anything as it's your last Council of Governors.
Yeah, just to thank Angela for the comments. Thank all the governors for everything they bring to the trust. And I think you, Krishni, know over the 10 years we've seen quite a change and quite a range of governors coming through, which has been great. They've all brought some great perspectives, and listening to the information tomorrow, you know that's going to continue. And they're a critical part of NHFT and really add to the diversity and fabric of what we do. So I'd thank the governors for that and just recognise their role. And I've really enjoyed it. I think as Simon was, as the presentation earlier, we are on top of a lot of things. We've done really well. I know the presentation you gave showed how much we've done. And I think everybody on the board and in the governance is committed to keep on pushing forward, even what's going to be difficult times. So, yeah, just to thank everybody and say I've really enjoyed my time here.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. And just to echo Angela's sort of, although obviously Angela's worked much longer with Chris than I, he's been the lead exec for governance from the time I started. So obviously working very closely with Richard and Chris on, on all sorts of areas. So whilst, very much the exec lead for all sort of HR and culture, he's also had governance in his portfolio and therefore has supported Richard and myself with governance as well, and that includes support in relation to the Council of Governors. So we did want to mark this occasion because it is an important one, but I know the Council will join me in sending Chris off to his semi-retirement, I suspect, because I can't. I'm sure he won't be able to sit back completely and to really get the best out of it and enjoy it and make the most of it from a personal point of view. But we will miss you, Chris. So I think we've said that already, but it is important to keep saying that. So thank you on behalf of the Council of Governors. Okay. Any questions about anything that Angela commented on? I know there's a lot of sort of aspects of what Angela said were about the national picture. To be honest, there's still a lot of uncertainty, so we probably don't know the answers to all the questions. But I think the context for us, the most important context for us, I think, is what Angela highlighted, which is continued delivery in relation to the quality finances, the basics of doing that, but doing that with a very engaged workforce, which is our absolute commitment, because we know how important that is, as Angela's already said. So if there's no particular questions, it might be as well then to hand straight over to Melanie and Tim, who I'm delighted are going to take you through the staff survey results in a bit more detail, because this is such an important foundation for that challenging year ahead that we've talked about and is such a priority for us. So over to you, Melanie and Tim. I'll let you decide who goes first.
Thank you, Krishni. I think I've drawn first stint, and Joe, if you could just share the slides. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to take you through the results of the recent staff survey. Melanie and I, as we've said, are going to take you through the slides, and it's really important this year, the context for this, because with such a challenging year ahead of us, it's important that actually staff are in the right place, understand the challenge, but have got the right attitude towards taking that forward. Just a quick bit of history, if you'll indulge me. Staff surveys were actually introduced in the 1920s with the hope of improving employee engagement. And today, 100 years later on, between 50 and 75% of companies actually conduct staff surveys. So there's a whole load of the population who never get to take part in it. And I think it's important that we realise the opportunity and value that can create. The NHS staff survey in itself is one of the largest workforce surveys in the world, and it's been conducted every year since 2003. And it makes it a particularly powerful tool, as it shows where we've progressed as an organisation. It also highlights where we need to shine a light and where we can make improvements. And further that, it shows how we benchmark against the wider NHS and reflects a snapshot of how people in the NHS experience their working lives. Every autumn, NHS staff in England are invited to take part in that NHS survey. In the presentation today, we'll go over the key findings, highlight some of the trends, and discuss what these results mean for us as an organisation. We'll also talk about how else we get assurance as non-executive directors on staff happiness, and also when staff have concerns. As we go through the results, I'd encourage you to keep an open mind and think about the ways we can create a better workplace for everyone at NHFT. Joe, can you move on to the next slide, please? As I said, this is an annual event, takes place each autumn, which has the benefits that you're reviewing the same data year in year. That said, it provides us with just a single data point, and that's not enough to ensure we actively monitor staff satisfaction and any issues that are growing. So in addition, this slide highlights some of those things. We have quarterly pulse surveys that are conducted in Q1, Q2 and Q4, as the survey itself is done in Q3, and that gives us regular updates. Our regular service visits are an opportunity to talk with staff, and it's really interesting how quickly specific issues can be highlighted and escalated. And Michael this morning talked about how the value of this triangulation plays through in a lot of the work we do. There's also a real emphasis on effective reporting. This comes to committees and board meetings. As chair of the People Committee and the Wellbeing Guardian on the Wellbeing Steering Group, I see an awful lot of this rounded picture on the staff data. So it's not just the colour of the data, it's the what and the how, and we see both very explicitly. In addition, we get staff stories at the board, we do deep dives on specific topics at the People Committee, we have freedom to speak up reports, and there's feedback to the Wellbeing Guardian. So, if we can move on to the next slide, we can get into the results themselves. This survey is an opportunity for our staff to share their thoughts and experiences and suggestions, and for that to be effective, we need really strong participation from the team. And we certainly got that this year with our highest ever response rate. For the first time ever, we cracked through the 60% barrier, so from all our staff, and that's almost 3,000 responses. So it's a really rich data set, comfortably ahead of the national average. Importantly, though, it means that our results accurately reflect staff sentiments at the time. This means we get good data for that Q3 result. The staff engagement score of 7.3 out of 10 is a good result, not significantly, I can't say this, statistically significant compared to last year. But now, having done that introduction, I'll hand over to Melanie to take you through some more detail on the results.
Remember to unmute myself. Hello, everybody. Yes, and you may already be familiar, and here's one I prepared earlier. The board paper from the last public board does have paper O, is a much richer and complete set of results and insights into the staff survey results. So I do encourage you, if you haven't already, to dip into that paper to hear a little bit more. And what you'll see in that paper, as Tim has already outlined, is that the results that we receive from the staff survey, we don't only use those as a score and a comparison to last year, but we also look at how we benchmark against our peer group, how we benchmark in the Midlands, and also national trends. So these results are seen through a whole variety of different lenses to make sure we get the most value out of understanding what we're doing well and what we need to focus on. And the staff survey is broadly focused into 9 different sections. They're the 9 sections of the NHS People Promise. And so the questions within the survey group together. And the good news is that NHFT is above average and actually in the upper quartile for every single one of those 9 segments. But I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to delve into some of the areas where we've seen the best increases, and then maybe some areas where we're going to continue to focus next year. So if you can move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. That first bullet, Tim's already said the last slide was about. We were so proud of it, we couldn't help saying it twice. I mean, it's just getting a good response rate is a really critical part of the staff opinion survey. So really important for us to continue to try and drive that up. It was really good to see an improvement in how staff recommend NHFT as a place to work. And that's really important because we are facing, and have faced for many years, so many challenges with workforce recruitment that word of mouth, and particularly as part of our local employer status, having people being able to talk about us positively as a place to work is a really strong benefit in our attempts to recruit and retain people. You'll see as well, fewer staff are now reporting feeling unwell due to work-related stress. And again, goodness, I mean, it will continue to get more and more stressful and pressured, but NHFT is working hard to try and manage that. And indeed, the overall feeling safe and healthy at work domain, one of those 9 people promises, saw a significant improvement year on year. Now, against a background of national decline, you'll see that we also had an increase in staff feeling there are opportunities to develop their career. And that whole domain of learning and development also really important, and a big focus in that domain on appraisals as well, which saw some really strong results. And again, that's one of the key mechanisms by which we can understand staff ambitions and help people to develop themselves and their careers. And then the next 2 bullets, we saw a 13% increase in responses from the ethnic, I should say, and cultural minority colleagues, and an 8% increase in responses from staff with a disability or long-term condition. And both of these particular protected characteristics are really important, and also particularly the focus of both national initiatives and programmes that NHFT have together in collaboration with LPT, but also across the East Midlands. So these are areas that we focus on greatly. Getting a good response rate from these individuals is really important to help better enforce the results and understand that the results are representative. And I'll come on to those areas in a bit more detail. The other thing that was good, we haven't put it on the slide, but in both of those colleague sectors, we saw a reduction, a significant reduction in staff feeling harassed or discriminated against within the workplace from colleagues and managers. And that's really important because that's been, again, a key focus of the work that NHFT have done and that we see through the People Committee. And then in relation to clinical practice, a strong increase in staff reporting that they feel safe to speak up about unsafe clinical practice. And again, staff being able to share their perspectives, share their views, speak up when they think things could be done better or something's unsafe is incredibly important. So that's an area of focus and good to see a good increase in that. If we move on then to the areas where the surveys indicated we should continue to focus. We have seen a continued trend, and again, this is a national trend in ethnic and cultural minority staff experiencing harassment, bullying or abuse from patients and public. And there is a lot of work being done across the NHS to try and address this, both in terms of visible signposting, actions that can be taken against patients, family, carers who may express this kind of behaviour. So it's an area of really ongoing focus. But again, the national trend suggests that it's becoming even more challenging. Patient, family and carer behaviour can often be even more challenging as people sort of demand more and more of the NHS. So it is a really wicked problem. Coming back to the sort of safe and healthy, the one area that we really wanted to address based on the results from the survey are that staff with a long-term condition seem to feel more pressure still to come into work when not feeling well enough. And together with the next bullet point, which talks about staff with disability or long-term conditions feeling that it's not easy enough for them to have reasonable adjustments made. This is clearly an area that our Workforce Disability Equality Programme, WDES, will continue to focus on in the next year. We had a very slight drop in staff engagement, but not statistically important. But again, a national trend where staff and motivation of staff in these really challenging conditions with everything that's always in the press, both locally and nationally. That's an area that we continue to focus on and look in depth at the areas underpinning that. And then finally, disappointing decrease in the percentage of ethnic and cultural minority staff, again, believing that there are equal opportunities. And this has been an area of real focus. So again, it will be important to circle back around and really engage with the REACH network and staff to understand how we can provide more care on that. So I'm going to hand back to Tim now to talk about how, as NEDS, we now, with those results, look to how the executive team and across the organisation, NHFT responds and develops programmes to address these areas of focus. Tim.
Thanks, Melanie. Joe, could you move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So just a reminder that we get assurance in a variety of ways, and the slide covers an awful lot of those. But I think it's important to recognise that there's an awful lot of hard work has gone into getting the results we've got this year. It isn't just by accident. And if in an awful lot of organisations that do this work really well, they see this as one of the single most important metrics in terms of the sustainability of their model and the resilience going forward. So it is really important that the board continue to use this as a real focus for change and to make sure that the teams on the ground feel supported in the work they do. Just listing a couple of things that we keep an eye on though. If we start at the top in the purple, the People Committee does an awful lot of work looking at the staffing levels, the safeguarding, the well-being, the risk register around it. And actually, as a chair, that over the last year has changed from the Integrated Assurance Committee, where it was a far broader church, to much more focus on people for the year ahead. Going through the rest of the list, you'll notice there's an awful lot in there which we've touched on already, but it highlights the importance of all of this work in making sure that everybody, whether that is executives, non-executives, all the rest of the governors out on visits, actually recognise that we're dealing with human beings who are at work doing the best in the community in which they live and work. And so this is a really good result, but it doesn't mean we should be complacent in any way, shape or form, but actually there are areas for focus, and it's important those are the things that we highlight over the year to come. For those of you that would like more detail, they are available online, but I see that Richard has shared also the paper that Melanie referenced, Paper O, in the chat as well. So if you'd like to look in detail at that, then that is there, and we're happy to answer any questions on it. But finally, on behalf of the non-exec directors, I think it's important to recognise the hard work that's gone into achieving these results by everybody at NHFT. That doesn't just mean the board, it means our managers and the people on the ground as well, and making sure we're improving the working lives of everyone at NHFT. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. There is just a question about WDES and WRES, the wonderful four-letter abbreviations that we're so fond of. But Richard has given you the explanation of what the letters stand for, but effectively I think Melanie and Tim alluded to this. There are some very specific set of data that we collect in relation to the two protected characteristics nationally. One is around disability and one is around race equality. That's not to say, and very important to say, we're obviously are interested in and focus on all protected characteristics because they're all equally important. But in terms of those particular measures, it's been recognised in the NHS that those are areas that we collectively need to monitor and compare with each other. So those two sets of data, some of which is drawn from the STAR survey, some of which is drawn from other results, about sort of appointment processes, that sort of thing. They are a specific set of data which looks at how, if you were disabled, how do your prospects, for example, compare with someone who is not disabled? So it's that sort of comparison. There will be separate papers and separate focus on that specifically as part of Tim's People Committee, and you will see board papers on that as well. And there's another link to explaining those in a bit more detail. But some of the reason why they're important, relevant, is that some of the data that goes into what we call WDES and WRES is actually drawn from the STAR survey. So the two are inherently linked. I hope that helps. But we can certainly cover that as well as a separate topic in due course if people would like us to do that. Now, are there any other questions or comments that people would like to make or explore? Was everything? I thought it was very well explained, so thank you, Melanie and Tim, and hopefully that's helped governors to understand it. So if there are no questions, that's absolutely fine. We're very important to just note where we are on that because it's such an important thing every year for us. One thing I would say is that the reason why we believe it's a very important thing to focus on is that some of the work done by people like Michael West, who are well known to the NHS, has shown through formal research that there is a correlation between the staff engagement results of an organisation and the quality of patient care that is provided. And I think I know Angela and Chris would sort of strongly support this, that that's what we've seen really, that the investment in our people and the support for our people has really also demonstrated improvements in our sort of patient care and the outcomes from CQC inspections, etc. So it's a sort of well recognised element, and that's why it feels really important to us. Tim, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just on that last point, actually, Krishni, and just harking back to my days in John Lewis, if you're a manager in John Lewis, this is your single biggest measure over and above anything else that you do. And there is a direct correlation, statistically significant, I can't get it right even second time round, between partner happiness in John Lewis and the results you achieve as a department or a shop. So absolutely, in industry, it is the big measure.
Thanks, Tim. And that's really helpful because what that illustrates is, this isn't just an NHS thing. This is a really important measure, and big, commercial private sector organisations were always, John Lewis was a different model, but many big organisations recognise this as very important. In our case, it links to quality of the care that we provide. In John Lewis's case, it'll be the retail experience that is provided to customers of John Lewis, and so very important. So so thank you very much, Melanie and Tim, for sharing that, and hopefully colleagues have found that interesting. I know sometimes when you're taking these presentations on board, you might think of questions afterwards. You do have the mechanism for raising questions with us if anything comes to mind. So if there's nothing further to cover, Monica, would you like to come in?
Hi, yes, just a quick one on the statistics that were shared on the protected characteristics. 13% increase and 8% on the disability. I'm just wondering whether that was organic, or did I miss the part where it was an active engagement to get the Black and ethnic staff involved more, or was that just an organic uptake increase in the
Thanks, Monica. It's a really good question. So I think Monica's kind of keen to clarify, did we actively try and drive the increase in response rate from our ethnic minority colleagues and our colleagues who are disabled? So I think, Melanie, did you want to come in? And certainly Chris would like to come in as well.
Well, I'm happy to defer to Chris to probably give a far more professional answer, but I would only say that absolutely. I mean, not just the protected characteristics, but every year there is a significant drive within the trust, and particularly through the staff networks, to encourage people to respond to the survey, because it provides us with such a rich snapshot in time, as Tim has described. But Chris, I'll defer to you.
I think Melanie's right. The focus is on getting everybody to respond. So we don't single out members of the REACH network or the Enable network. But I think what's absolutely clear, and the chairs of those networks and other colleagues, is I think it's a result of the amount of work that we've put in. We've had so much work going on, and the REACH network are so heavily involved in the co-production of that, as indeed our Enable network. And I think that much greater involvement of them in the plans we've got, their implementation, the feedback they give us has led to them, I think, feeling that it's worthwhile to participate. And that 13% increase is on the back of an even bigger increase last year, I mean, a really massive increase last year. So I think it demonstrates that work we've been doing.
Thank you. Great question, Monica. And I think it's really important because, you know, what we're keen to do is make sure we're hearing all the voices in our organisation. I think Melanie made the point that it's important that it's representative. And, you know, just another example, it's not directly staff survey, but certainly when Melanie, myself and Angela talk with the Freedom Speak Up Guardian about you know, concerns being raised, for example, we're always looking for, is there, you know, are we hearing the concerns from all different parts of our organisation? You know, are we hearing those concerns from different protected characteristics, different groups of staff and levels of staff? Because it is so important to make sure that the voices we're hearing are representative, and I think that's the priority, really. Tim, did you want to come back in? Oh, sorry, Linda. Linda's keen to come in, so if I may bring Linda in, and then Tim, I'll give you the last word as you led the presentation. Linda?
Thank you, Krishni. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm Linda.
Linda, I think you've gone back on mute. I don't know if it's me again, but technical issues do seem to be hitting us repeatedly, I think. Are you able to unmute, Linda? No, I think she might have frozen, actually. Tim?
Yeah, I was just on Monica's point, and I think it shows, if you go into the detailed survey results I did over the last week, and look over time, and it shows you the history over the last few years, what it really shows you is it's not been a straightforward journey, but the agility of the organisation to respond and improve the scores. Back to her point, has this been a proactive response? Absolutely, and you can see those shifts, and Chris referenced that, you know, 2 years and consistently on that particular question, but there's a whole load of other questions where if there's been a dip, the following year the response has been very quick and very thorough. And I think it's important that we don't just recognise this as a gradual shift, but actually an awful lot of work and focus and a responsive approach to where results in historically might have gone a slightly different way.
And certainly, so I don't think we've got Linda back in, so we might have lost her, unfortunately, but it is these gremlins that keep happening at the moment. But Monica's also asked about opportunities to engage with representatives. I think Heather, you're a member of the Reach network and you're pretty actively involved, if I remember. But I will just mention that I think we do run some events. Obviously, we like to the Reach network needs to decide who it wants to engage with, and we obviously would want them to feel like it's their network and it's their opportunity to manage who they invite to participate. But the great thing is the events that we run, I think that the Reach network often runs, and I think I would encourage governors and NEDs to join those, because the Reach network will run events, the you know, the LGBTQ plus network will run events, and our disabled network run events. Enable, I think we call it now, don't we? But these events are great opportunities to hear from some of the challenges that staff with protected characteristics particularly might be concerned about or face. And so I would definitely, I think it might be just something, Tracy and Joe, we just think about making sure that those opportunities to join those events are made available to governors specifically, because I think they're always really excellent ways of engaging with the networks and hearing from them. So Heather, did you want to come in? And then I'll bring Linda in.
Yeah, just let us say, like on the 17th of April, we have a conference Together Against Racism. It's happening in Corby. So of course, if anyone of the NED or the governor would like to join, of course, they're welcome.
Okay, thanks, Heather. We'll have a look at have a look at that and see whether there's an opportunity to invite. There might be a challenge in inviting all the governors to participate in that, but we'll certainly have a look at that. And Linda, can we bring you back in?
Thanks, Krishni, and apologies, colleagues. I think it's the MS Teams. I was about to respond to Monica just to say that engagement is one of the things we do continuously in NHFT. So where we find ourselves lacking in engaging meaningfully, we always look and strive for ways to engage staff more meaningfully. So earlier we heard about the service visits. So when we go out as execs, non-execs, during the time that we're having our staff survey, we'll actually ask the question if staff are aware of it. It's a way for us to hear from you. It's anonymous, just providing the additional assurance. Because some people sort of say, well, it's not anonymous because you send me a reminder that I've not completed it. So that opens up a conversation with colleagues. What's also helpful with the staff survey is that not only do people get assurance that their voices are heard, following on from that, so as execs for our different areas, we're able to go back and say to our teams, this is what's been mentioned in the organization, how best do we work to address these areas? So it's not specific to individuals, but it's actually the plan of the whole organization. So it's a you said we did piece, which staff really value. And we've been doing that engagement piece now as we develop our group strategy. So we're going around talking to staff, are you aware? So we continue to do that and value people's feedback and engagement. Thank you.
I think Krishni might have been subject to the Teams gremlins, unfortunately. So that's typical, isn't it? Right at the end of the meeting. Under normal circumstances, we defer to Julia, I guess, to step in as chair as we are still going ahead. So, Julia, I don't suppose you're able to step in, given the technical crisis that we appear to be having.
Yes, definitely. That's classic, isn't it?
You.
Just as I've closed my agenda down. That was perfect timing. Yes, I'm sure Krishni will join in a second. But yes, thanks very much for all the questions and comments, etc. on that last session. I think we're down to, Richard, just correct me if I'm wrong, to say apologies, I've just closed my agenda. I think we're down to any other business.
We are, that's right.
Don't think we've been notified of any, but I just give people an opportunity for a minute if there's anything else that they want to take the opportunity to ask. No, it doesn't seem to be any other business. So it just leaves me to thank everybody very much for your attendance today. And we've had some fantastic presentations, learned an awful lot, received a lot of assurance, I think. Great assurance presentation, thank you. And thanks to Simon for his session and to others for contributing. Really good meeting today. Thank you very much. We'll see everybody at the next meeting in June. So thanks very much for your time today. And I think Richard's on the phone to Krishni, but we'll say goodbye to Krishni and see you all in June. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.